we're back, week 18. What can I say? This is the first time I can finally say this. It is fight week. My next guest, I hit up right at the beginning of this podcast, and he gave me his word he would contact me once he had a fight announcement. And for a while there, I was getting a little nervous, but he is a man of his word. He's fighting for Bellator this weekend. Both him and his opponent have a pro record of 4-1, which means it's going to be someone's one has got to be done. He fights out of Extreme Couture in Vegas, but I guess he still claims to be Hawaiian. I don't know. We're about to find out. But anyway, I'm talking about none other than Gwerder. How are you? What have you been up to? And how has 2020 been treating you?
Oh man, I've been good. Thanks for having me. Same thing as always. Just even though we've been in quarantine, it's kind of one of those things where it hasn't stopped me from doing my job. I gotta go in and train every day. And I mean, granted, we gotta be a little more careful with everyone getting sick and whatnot, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I gotta pay my bills at the end of the day.
So has it been any harder though during this pandemic? Like have because over here for ages they closed all the gyms, right? Like you literally, I mean, I guess they did in Hawaii too, because I mean Max Holloway was claiming that he was only training over Zoom, which I have to say I don't believe that, but but over here over here it was strict. Like they literally were sending police officers around, and it's like a $10,000 fine, right? So,
Yeah.
But then again, you guys live in the land of the free. So this is, I guess, where does it stand over there? Are you, because over here, the government tells us to lock down, we lock down. Like, I mean, we have guys that have been wanting to protest. But I mean, it's even gotten to a point now. Last week, they had 2 people arrested, literally for posting on Facebook that they wanted to protest on the weekend. And suddenly they had police knocking at their doors and arrested both of them for incitement, right? Which I've never seen before. And I think that's kind of a little out of control now, because I was like, hang on a sec, it's a Facebook post. Who cares? But how have you guys been handling the pandemic?
It's different in different states. It's like, so I was in California for the beginning from where it started in February, mid-February, March, April. I was in California at CSA, and they weren't messing around. They went full lockdown. They had cops showing up to the gym. Actually, I think it was back in April, a little before I left. I was in a gym working out, and it was just me lifting weights, and cops were actually sitting out back because we were sneaking into the gym individually. But it wasn't like we were actually training with each other. It was, we were doing our own thing, hitting the bag by ourselves or lifting weights and whatnot. So I was actually leaving the gym, and as soon as I step out the door, cop roll up, like 2 deep. There's two cops in the car, and they're like heavily armed, ready to go. And I'm walking out, and they pull up heavy. They're like, "Hey, hands on your head!" Like, I don't know, like, whoa, 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 like, what's going on? And you see all these crazy things going on with cops nowadays. And I'm not white. I have brown. I'm tattoos. I'm covered in tattoos, let alone. And so, like, first thing that pops into my head is, please don't shoot me, like, for whatever reason. So they're like, "Oh, what are you guys doing?" I was like, "Oh, I was just getting a lift in." And he said, "Oh." I had to kind of tell them that I worked there as well too, And uh, coach was in the gym just doing his own thing, but yeah, they were serious, and they were talking about like, oh, it's like $1,000 fine for every person you catch coming out of the gym, and then up to 5,000 for the business owner. And I was like,
Yeah.
dang, well, yeah, I'll let coach know next time. And they let me slide, but for a good minute, I was thinking, like, man, either I'm gonna get shot or I'm gonna get $1,000 fine. So
Well,
he let me go.
it's the same for us over here. I think it's $1,600 for the individual, and then as I say,
Yeah.
it's 10,000 for the business, right? Like, so
Hmm.
they don't play around either. And for a while there, it was getting to a point. I think we were all thinking this is their way of recouping some of the money, right? Because obviously,
Yeah.
I guess you guys as well, our government's given us a lot of stimulus packages, right? Whether it's extra unemployment benefits or whether it's just we got this thing called JobKeeper, which basically is a handout from the government to businesses to keep people employed during this time, which is billions and billions of dollars, right? So we're all sitting here going, okay, well, there's no such thing as free money, right? So like the running joke was like, yeah, now they're sending the police out to fine everyone to try to recoup some of that money, right?
Collect money back.
But it's crazy as well that you mentioned the thing about, you know, the police and being heavy-handed and stuff like that. I think it sometimes comes with the territory. You know, your gun laws, right? Like it's the land of the free. I know a lot of. I don't know which side you stand on that table, but I know that, you know, you always debate the fact that it's your right to bear arms and things like that. And you know, for me, I kind of agreed for a long time. I mean, we can't have guns over here, or you can if you're a farmer or whatever, but generally speaking, it's not your right, so to speak, right? But I mean, two things on that. I kind of find the first thing is that even though we don't have the freedom to own a gun, I kind of feel freer because I know the general population don't have guns. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, when I walk the streets, and I don't care if it's like 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, generally speaking, I feel pretty safe. You know what I mean? Like, so therefore, like, yes, we have a law that holds us down in a sense, but on the same token, I feel freer because I don't have that constant worry. And it was my friend that actually pointed that out to me, even with the police side of things, because I used to always show him, you know, as you see these YouTube clips, and I'm like, look at this, like police brutality.
Yeah.
And he's actually part of the special forces here in Australia, and he was like, dude, like, I get it that you know, a lot of the cases they are, you know, it looks like they're jumping the gun. But what he was saying from his perspective is, whatever it is, defense forces, police, whatever, like, it's a job, right? Like at the end of the day, it's a job.
They just want to go home.
And they want to go home, right? And what he was saying, because I showed him one example of the police, they this is going years back, they pulled a guy into a service station and he got out of the car and they asked for, what did they ask for? Your rego insurance or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And he went in to grab him, and as soon as he went into the car, they shot him, right? And I was like, that's crazy, like, you know, and my friend said, yeah, but he shouldn't have gone into the car, because obviously their first thought is he's going to go get a firearm, right? So they're and that's why they're trigger happy, is because you've got so many guns.
Well, I mean, they're trained to look at the worst situation.
But you've got so many guns, like technically everyone's got a gun. So it's like, well, I'm going to shoot first, ask questions later, right? Where over here, like the reason you see the police, like I saw one guy post a thing where, you know, there's this guy with a knife and the police are there for literally 10 minutes just going, put the knife down, you know, and he's kind of like, in America, that guy would have been shot, you're right. But in the example that I gave my mate, he's like, I said, but they asked him to get the insurance papers. And he said, yeah, but what he should have done is said, listen, my insurance papers are in the car. Should I lean in? You know, like literally ask for that permission. It was the fact that the way he leant in, you know, as their mentality is like, well, we're not about to find out, which, as I say, it doesn't excuse what they do. But I do, like, I am one of those people that I kind of go, look, I mean, when I was in Vegas last, we went to the firing range. Love it. A lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think that you should have so many, I guess, firearms openly available for everyone, like, and especially with the checks that you guys have, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely, like, I'm on both sides of it. Like, there's people out there getting their hands on guns that probably shouldn't have guns, and there's cops out there that probably shouldn't be cops. You know what I mean? And it's there's loopholes both sides, but it comes down to the situation, and really, I think it's a moral thing. Like if the dude's like waving his hands up in the air, like, "Hey, don't shoot me," I'm like, whatever. Even if he's a criminal and he's not, he's got nothing on him. He's no weapon whatsoever. Like, you don't go and just shoot the dude or whatever you feel like doing, and you don't go and piss off a cop just because you feel like it. And because they
and especially because here
have the authority to shoot.
Yeah, and especially because here the running joke as well is that a lot of police officers are people that got picked on at school, right?
Hey,
right, they finally get that authority now, right? And they like to abuse that
start
too,
having that power trip,
right? So I mean, that's the running joke.
like
I'm
that
not
in
saying that.
Hawaii.
I'm sure there's good officers out there too. Like I'm just saying that is the running joke.
For sure. I wanted to be a cop at one point. When
Did
I
you get
was
picked on at
growing
school?
up, like in high school. What's up?
I said, did you get picked on at school?
No, I just something about I like originally I wanted to be SWAT team, like special forces kind of thing. I just always had a fascination towards guns and stuff, and just always wanted to be really good with them. Not because I'm kind of messed up in the head or whatever, but just I don't know. They're just cool. But I feel like the people that actually have hobbies for guns are the very ones that are good with them. They're safe with them. They're not just a bunch of goons with guns ready to be trigger happy and shoot somebody on the front lawn. Like, they'll come out there and practice, safe gun handling. But like I said,
I mean,
it goes both ways.
we have that over here too, right? Like, that's what I mean. Like, so the two ways you can kind of have a gun over here, like when we say we can't have guns, you can. One is a farmer. But I think it's just like a one-shot rifle scenario, right? Like a bolt action or whatever, and they need to get a permit, and it's usually like if they have a lot of kangaroos on the property or a lot of rabbits, right? So, and they're out in the farm anyway, so it's not like they're going to go around. And even if they did, as I said, like they're limited to the type of gun that they can have, right? The other one, which is a little harder, like once again, like they're not going to let anyone join a club, but you can join gun clubs and get your licensing through that way. But the funny thing with that is a lot of the times the guns stay on the premises. So technically it becomes a shooting range, right? Like you don't actually take the gun home with you. It's your gun, but you store it there in the locker and everything like that. So, and even and even the police force, like I got a friend who's in the force, and as a police officer, you do have the right to take your gun home. Obviously, you have to have the right lockers and all that. But generally speaking, a lot of the officers, they'll leave it at the police department. They won't actually take the guns home. So once they clock off, that's it. They wipe their hands from it, right?
Yeah. See, that's the thing with America. It's like, I think everyone takes all these 10 commandments, whatever, like, oh, I have freedom, whatever, and they go and really take it for granted, like they'll push it to the very last straw just to prove a point, and that's where I think America fails. I would say, I think, like, all these countries that's got these strict laws towards anything like that shouldn't be messed around with, something that's you don't take lightly. I believe, like, America's failing there. They want to be like, hey, it's the land of the free. Now everyone can have a machine gun in their house. Like, nah. What do you need a machine gun for? You're not going to have a stampede of people at your front yard trying to knock your door down, for any reason. But
yeah, and as I said at the beginning, like, are you really free if you're always having to look over your shoulder, right? And that's the kind of sense that I get, right? It's like, yes, you have that freedom, but you're constantly worrying, like, if someone looks at you the wrong way.
Growing up in Hawaii, there was no such thing as really people pulling guns on us, like almost my whole childhood, or like all the way till I moved out of Hawaii. I moved away when I was 17. Never really ever I came across the guns once in Hawaii, and that was because my uncle was in the force, and like there's no gun stores that I can think of. They're all from the range if you were near any guns. And so Like we grew up, it was just, hey, let's they're scrapping, like I like my chances of being able to walk down the street in the middle of the night and be like, okay, I don't gotta worry about somebody putting a gun in my head if I turn around, and rather than be like, hey, let's, what's up, But I don't know. It's
See,
just crazy being in a mainland. It's especially Vegas. It's so lenient.
and I like that, like that's the one law I do like, where they have that in the States, right? Where you guys have that mutual combat law or something like that, where if two people decide they want to scrap, you legally can,
Let 'em
right?
scrap.
Like, because I've seen
Yeah.
videos like that
Oh,
as
yeah.
well, where you literally see a police officer just standing to the side, like he'll just watch it unfold because these two have like decided,
Yeah.
like, let's scrap. And I've always been a big believer of that, in the sense of, look, settle your differences, scrap it out, but at the end of the day, you both get to see another day, right? One will come
Yeah.
out a
See your
little worse,
family, whatever it is.
right? One will come out a little worse, like one will have the black eye, the busted lip, whatever. But at the end of the day, you have it out, but you both live. And like, even to the point, like, I don't see when I hate it when people bring knives to a fight. Or like, I'm the same. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, if you want to duke it out, that's it. Or in your case, make
Yeah.
some money and duke it out. Like, let's make it legal. Let's jump in the let's jump in the cage and
Yeah.
let's get paid, and we'll see who's boss.
Yeah. I'm all about that old school combat. It's mano y mano. Like it's man versus man. Like may the best man win. You beat me up. We shake hands at the end of the day. Like, all right, squash. We're good.
Nice.
That's how it is in Hawaii.
So you obviously starting with your mixed martial arts career, like, did that already start as a kid in Hawaii, or was that something that you kind of like really got into, like, once you made the move?
It was so I started in Hawaii. I'm originally a football player, American football, not soccer, but
Or rugby, as we
uh,
like to call it.
or rugby. Yeah, rugby is way cooler than
Right,
football,
we've
but
got rugby. It's funny because football, you've got your football, you've got soccer, you've got rugby, you've got union, and also Australian rules football. So every time someone says football, it's
yeah,
like, all right,
we got
what are we
all of them.
talking?
Yeah, I got to be specific. But yeah, so originally I was a football player, and a bunch of my brother and his friends, they were all training MMA, and this was kind of, I was pretty young. I was probably 14, 13, yeah, 12, 13. And in the off season of football, all I did was really go to the beach, surf every day after school, and I got fat in the off season. So, and football was always going to be my primary sport, and I was like, oh, I'm going to play college football, and I knew I was talented enough to, maybe even make it further in college football, and but I mean, obviously it didn't work out, but yeah, so my brother was actually like, hey, you should come and train with us in the off season, and learn how to fight. You can protect yourself. It'll complement football, footwork, all that stuff. You stay in shape. You just get fat, go to the beach every day, and eat poke. But yeah, it kind of found me, I guess you could say. It just worked out. Like football was so bad on my body. I got a lot of injuries, and after high school, I started doing it more and more often. Played a little bit of college and semi-pro football. Almost went and played in Canada, but I got hurt again and went right back to training MMA once I got healthy again. And yeah, I just kind of fell in love with it. I actually ended up being kind of decent to start, so I ran with it. I was like, maybe I'll get better at this. And well, here I am.
Which is funny because it's kind of like the regular occurrence, right? Like, I had Sam Goodman on, who's a boxer, an Australian boxer, and the same thing. He was a football player, and he did it to stay in shape during the off season, and then he's now a boxer. Jamie Malarkey, you know Jamie Malarkey, obviously Australian, now in the UFC. Same story. He was like, I started doing MMA to keep fit during the off season. And then the last one was Dave Francis that I had, same thing. And he was getting to the point, when I stopped him and I was like, hey, let me guess, you did this to stay fit? And he's like, mate, you need to get new guests, right? He's like, you need to get new guests because it's like a running theme. I mean, even when you look at Alex Volkanovski, right? He's an
Oh, he was a
but
monster.
he's an ex-football player. So it's
Yep.
weird that, like, I just find that a lot of, these mixed martial artists are converting across from football specifically. And I guess they're both contact sports, but like,
Yeah.
it's just
I
it's a
think
running
football is
theme.
the best converted. Sorry.
No, it's good.
I think football players are the best transfer athletes to MMA, just because football players are probably one of the most athletic beings on the planet, and they can do it all: agility, speed, strength. Like, I think that's why I do so well is because of all those traits, and I carry it over to what I'm doing.
And have you ever seen our football? Like when I say rugby, like have you ever seen that? Because I know that most
Yeah, yeah.
people, they're like, I can't believe you guys do this without pads and stuff. Like, what's your opinion of our game?
I'm all about it. I like all the contact. I play defense, so like pads or no pads, someone was getting a lick, and playing rugby, like all the boys, we used to play at the park, pickup games in the off season too. Like we'd just be like, hey, let's go round up 15 guys, go play, or 16 guys play 8-on-8, and just go and smack each other at the park with no pads. Like it wasn't a big deal. I was all for it.
Crazy. So listen, obviously at the end of last year, you also came and visited this little island down at the bottom of the globe. What was your kind of like? Was it your first time to Australia?
Yeah, that was my first time.
And what was your kind of first impressions?
As soon as we got out of the airport and like you take a step outside, I was like, man, it's just like Hawaii.
Well, that was
And
going to be my
just a
next
lot cleaner.
question. Like, how does it compare to Hawaii as well? Like,
Yeah. So it's a lot cleaner than Hawaii is. Smells a lot fresher as well. I'm not saying Hawaii is dirty, but it just seems like people in Australia just take care of their land better. Like um, I feel like Hawaii is so small, and the tourists just take overtakes the island that it kind of we take away from appreciating our land. Like Hawaiians are always been very very appreciative of the land. Taking care of the Aina, which is the land. And so, like going to Australia, I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Like I would totally move here. Like that was literally my first thought. It was like, if I ever had to like leave the country, I'm moving to Australia. Like, and I still feel the same way. It's the beaches are nice, the people are awesome. I love Aussies, man. They're just straightforward, fun people, and I actually am like got pretty really close with one of the guys that's out there that trains at Igor's, and like he's one of my favorite dudes I've ever met too. So I've only met him for like hung out with him like 3 days. So I love Australia, and the weather's awesome. It's just a big Hawaii.
well, the weather has definitely been getting better as we're heading into spring now. Today, I will say though is a terrible day. Like it's raining. It's pretty miserable. Did you
I
spend your
miss the
whole
rain, bro.
did you spend your whole time in Sydney, or did you travel a little bit while you were here?
Yeah, we stayed in Sydney. We were gonna go up the coast, and we're actually gonna go check out where Jesse's from, Cairns, and we are gonna go up the coast and do a whole bunch of stuff. But we got caught up doing a whole bunch of like business stuff for on her end. So yeah, it was one of those things we are gonna do a second time if we came back. But I do eventually want to come back, even if it's on my own, and do a whole bunch of gallivanting.
Well, as I was saying to Janae Harding a couple of weeks back, is you got to get into Scott's ear. We got to make Bellator. I know that they do European cards, so it's about time that they come and show Australia some love. They need to bring Bellator down to
Got
Australia.
to.
But while you were here, did you do any of the touristy things or not really? Like, did you go see the koalas and the kangaroos and all of
Yeah,
that kind
yeah.
of
We went
stuff?
to what is that? The one over in right in the harbor. We went to the aquarium that was over there,
The
and
Taronga
the
Zoo?
zoo that was there. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. We went over there and got to see a whole bunch of sharks. It was actually funny because we went to go see the sharks, and the very next day I went spearfishing, which was not a good idea because the whole time I'm thinking of all the sharks I seen the day before.
Well, it's funny you say that. Literally yesterday, it was in the news this morning. For the first time in 60 years, up in Queensland, they had a shark attack, and obviously
No way.
a fatal one. Yeah, great white, and the
Wow.
guy 46 passed
Great
away.
white.
So, but I mean, look, 60
Dang.
years, like it's one of those things. Like
That is crazy.
you always know the risk when as I said, because now they're
Yeah.
doing this whole witch hunt now. Like we've got to find this shark, and it's like I'm not a big believer of like, I mean, shark doing shark things. Like the risks when
Shark doing shark things.
right, the risks when you jump into that water. And I always find it so weird that all of a sudden they're like, oh, we need to kill the shark, and it's like, why? Like he was just doing
No,
what.
that's their element. That's their territory at that point. Like I've been spearfishing my whole life, and I've came across numerous sharks. Um, obviously they are curious creatures as well, and they're gonna come check you out if they see you. And I mean, you can only do so much to really maybe even uh, avoid the situation. Swim away if you see one, or and you can't be. You got to be cautious as you go in that water. You're like you're not the apex predator anymore, and like we have attacks in Hawaii all the time, and it's kind of just one of those things where you know what you was getting into when you got in the water.
See, we don't have that many attacks, but I mean, it happens. I
Yeah.
always relay it back to a comedian. I forgot who it was. It might have been like, I don't know if it was Cat Williams or someone, but they were talking about the Siegfried and Roy, right? And the tiger attack,
Uh-huh.
and everyone was like, "Oh my god, the tiger went crazy!" And he's like, "The tiger didn't go crazy. The tiger went tiger, right? Crazy is
Yeah,
crazy is the tiger running around on a little push bike and stuff. That's crazy, right? Like."
that's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but it's just because we see that as entertainment. But then when a tiger turns tiger, suddenly we're calling it crazy, which is nuts to
Yeah,
me.
you can't domesticate wild. At some point, they bring back their own DNA. They're gonna act on it.
That's it. So when you were over here, did you? I have to ask, did you try Vegemite?
I did. I actually tried it even beforehand, so I actually like it. I mean, there isn't a lot of food that I don't, or like things that I don't like as far as eating. Like at one point, I almost had it every morning for a couple weeks straight on my toast. So
I
I
think.
like Vegemite.
Yeah, I think there's a correct way of having it. I mean, I love Vegemite with a bit of cheese on it too. But I
Uh-huh.
think what the problem is, a lot of people see it as a spread like Nutella or jam or whatever, and they just layer it on, and it's one of those things that
Nah,
you're just meant to put a little bit on, right? Because otherwise it gets a bit
just a little, just a tad.
right. But it's funny
Yeah,
because it's it,
I notice if you put too much, it's a bit much.
yeah, well, because it's so strong, right? Like it really is. It's like ooh, like
Yeah,
but we grow up on it, so it's one of those things that most Australians will dig. But I guess we also master how much we're meant to be putting on. But then you'll always get
yeah,
like someone from overseas, and they'll just be like, "This is disgusting. Like, how do you even eat this stuff?" Right?
yeah.
Did you try Tim Tams?
Oh, bro, don't even get me started about Tim Tams right now. Cutting weight, and you're gonna bring up Tim Tams? Nah. Yeah, we. So first time Jessie was in Melbourne, she brought back like a whole bag for me. Uh, I think it had lasted maybe.
5 minutes.
I probably had maybe. I had at least like six or seven containers of them unopened. Ate the six in like 2 weeks, and I saved one because I was like, man, I'm really eating all of this, and this is really good. I don't have self control when it comes to eating either. So that last little case I had to make it last. So I made it last maybe about a month with like 3 pieces. But Tim Tams, hands down my favorite. I'm
And
not even a big sweet person, so that the fact that I like Tim Tams is a big deal.
and let me ask you though, did you have it just as a Tim Tam, or did you get taught the art of a Tim Tam bomb?
You gotta bite the corner, two corners, and then dip it in there. So you can even suck the milk up with it like a straw. That fudge, that was that the double fudge. What is that flavor? The
Oh
double fudge
mate,
one. Oh
there's
man,
like 40 different flavors now, but yeah,
that triple chocolate. I don't even remember what it is, but that is. I'm already salivating.
Right, and you literally you use it as a straw, usually preferably with a hot chocolate or a coffee or something
Yeah, hot
that's
chocolate.
something that's hot, because then obviously the
Yeah,
whole bomb it explodes in your mouth, right? It just like boom, like it melts, and
yeah.
it's crazy
I
good.
like with chocolate almond milk, especially because it's just thicker, and then heat it up a little bit. Yeah, I need to get me some Tim Tams.
Crazy, and I mean we also got the Mentos as well. You guys got Mentos,
Yeah, we
right?
got Mentos. I haven't had those in years.
Right, they're pretty good too, and the one they've got this limited edition right now, which is called like this or that, which means that every Mentos comes with a this or that question, right? So I don't know if you can see it right there, probably not too far away. But
No,
for instance, this one
can't really
says
see it.
this one says dolphin or shark. So are you a dolphin person or are you a shark person?
Shark. It's all about being the apex
I
predator.
was about to say, right?
I can't be locked in a cage 15 minutes at a time and expect to be a dolphin. Got to be a shark.
Yeah, but then again, dolphins are intelligent, right? They're one of the smartest creatures.
Touche. I'm
Yeah.
not that smart though, so.
So, but talking about food, and as you just mentioned as well, your fight week. So this is the tough week for you, I guess, when it comes to food. Anyway, how
Yeah.
are you traveling along? Like, have you got much weight to shed, and like, yeah, how's fight week traveling?
Um, it's it's fairly easy. My last couple weight cuts been really easy, but coming off a loss back in December, and for me not being able to get that one back for so long, like it's been 9 months since I fought, and that's really been stinging my soul for a while. And I can't even watch that fight or even really think about it because it really, really annoys me. So, and it's just such a poor performance. And since then, it's like we had COVID, and so I had no choice but to take off. And then as soon as I was able to actually get a decent like training schedule put together, I dedicated everything I had. I changed the way I eat, made it a lot cleaner. I worked out more. I just dedicated everything I could to really make myself not be that person I was back in December. So this fight, I actually really dieted. Like I stopped eating red meat so far out just so I can be cleaner. Uh, ran more. I trained harder. Got in my head, like really meditated. Even whatever I could do to keep my mind pure and focused on training and my body right to stay healthy, I did this time around. And um yeah, this time around I'm actually had a little bit of French fries earlier. I was so hungry that I didn't feel guilty eating it because my weight's fine, my body feels great, but we're stuck quarantined, so it wasn't anything to eat. I was like, I'm gonna have some fries.
So let me ask you though, going back to your last fight, I know you don't want to rewatch it or relive it, but do you know where it went wrong for you? Like, was it something that went wrong in the fight that you feel like you could have done differently, or was it to do with dieting and stuff? Since you're taking a different approach to it now, was it that your gas tank ran out, or what? Do you know where you went wrong on the last one?
There was a few things. It No excuses. He was the better man that night. He beat me. And I own that loss. Like I'd rather have had that loss when I did rather than later. And the only thing really I changed besides going back to Vegas is just the way I eat and the way I look at all of it. Like going into fight week in December, I thought I was in the right mindset, but I wasn't. That week of, mentally I was nowhere to be found. I was not focused whatsoever. I took it way too lightly. I was way too relaxed going into that fight, and it bit me in the ass.
And when you say with
I
the
wasn't very.
when you say with the focus, was that to do with uh, the pressure being your first, I guess, Bellator fight, or did you have a lot of distractions, or why weren't you in the right mindset?
You know what? I'm still trying to figure out why. To be honest, like there was a couple of things throughout camp that I wasn't happy with, and I'm not gonna get real specific because I don't want to make it seem like I'm throwing anybody under the bus or blaming someone else. But yeah, came fight week, I just didn't want to fight. I woke up fight day and was like, just get this over with. Like I didn't even want to be there, you know. Warming up in the back, I wasn't thinking about the fight. I was warming up and I was still spacing out. Got into the cage and I just like phased out, blank, quiet. Like nothing was going on in my head to really get me to trigger that switch. I'm usually very good at triggering my switch and just being like, all right, game on, let's scrap. But that night just
and it's crazy
deer in headlights.
And it's crazy you mentioned that, because I always say that's what makes this the toughest job in the world, right? It's the fact that you know, in most jobs you're not feeling good, right? You call your boss, you tell him I'm sick or whatever, you're like, I ain't coming in today, right?
Yeah.
Where with combat sports, whether it be boxing or MMA, it's like you don't get that option, like unless there's like a serious injury or something goes wrong. But it's as you mentioned, like you can't just wake up in the morning and go, I don't want to be here. What are you going to do? Call Scott, call Scott and go, hey, you know, like,
can you take a rain check?
Yeah, I ain't coming in today. Why? What's wrong? Oh, nothing. I just don't really feel like it. You know, like you don't have that option, and that's where I think, you know, as I say, that's what makes this line of work so tough, and people usually don't understand that. It's like you're human. You know, everyone has their ups and their downs. The bottom line is on your down days, you're just going to have to pull your socks up and walk on in anyway, right? Even if you don't want to be there, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's, you know, yeah, you can't really just be like wake up that morning and be like, hey, let's take a rain check. Like you're not feeling good. Either you push through and like do what you got to do, or you get in there and take your ass whooping. And I kind of took my ass whooping.
I mean, I don't think you got your ass whooped, but yeah. I mean, you took the L.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I took an L, so I'll leave it at that.
And it's your first one as a pro. So I mean that one, you know, my mother used to always say to me when I was younger. She used to always say the first one's the hardest. With anything.
Yeah.
Right, with anything, because then you start to learn. It's first anything. Like as I say, like I remember when I had my first car and I got that first scratch in the car, and it ate me up inside for weeks. Right, I was like, damn it, I scratched the car. You know, like it was really that moment.
Yeah.
And she'd be like, you're gonna have many more in your life. You know, like that one's gonna hurt. You'll learn to deal with the rest of it. And it's true. Like these days, like, you know, you put a scratch in or whatever, you're like, nah. I've been here before. I don't really, you know. But I mean, you know, so being your first Bellator, and you obviously wanted to put on a performance. You didn't get the nod, and I think you posted something this week saying the last one was a setback. This one's the comeback, right? Is that a whole mindset, or you know?
Yeah. I keep telling myself, like, over the past couple months, even before I got this fight, I was like, the next one's me coming back. I'm gonna show everyone what I'm good at. You know, like last time, whatever the issue was going into fight week, and it is what it is. That was just a little setback. That's like you said, it's like the scratch on the car. Like, all right, cool, we gotta keep moving, and that's how I'm going into this one. I just want to go out there, have fun, do what I do best, and every time when I have fun and do what I do best, I get the results I want.
And have you had a full camp for this one, or because of COVID, has it been kind of like broken up? Like, yeah, and I guess who's been getting you ready for this one?
So I guess I would say I did have a full camp, even though it was on 3.5 weeks notice, just about 4 weeks. It's almost a full camp for most people. They would 4 weeks, but I like to call 6 weeks a full camp. Yeah, I've been going hard nonstop, strength and conditioning, as if I've been in camp since May. So, like, this was 3 months in the making for me. I was ready to do that all the way till they called me and told me, "Hey, you got to fight this night." I was really gonna take a short notice and just be ready.
Is that actually you training as hard in strength and conditioning? Because all the videos I see you posting is just you yelling at other people to push their limits, right? Like you constantly got these people on the aero bikes and stuff like that. So I don't know, like, because I always find that funny as well on the coach's perspective, right? Like, because I go to training, I had this joke with my coach just last week, and he, like when he's like, when they demonstrate, they're like, boom, boom. And they're like, now do that for 2.5 minutes straight, right? And I always feel like you do it for 2.5 minutes straight, because when you're starting to fatigue, right? And they're like, come on, keep going. Yeah. And it's like, hang on a sec, you did it for 5 seconds and now you're telling us to do it for 2.5 minutes, like give us a break. But I'm not a professional athlete.
Yeah, I'm sure. So like, since I started personal training, I'm sure sometimes they hate me because, well, like I'm not going to make them do something that I couldn't do, but sometimes I forget that I'm a professional athlete and I'm pushing them to do something for 2.5 minutes. And they're like, this is hard, like for the average person that isn't fully athletic or super in shape. And so sometimes I gotta remember and be like, oh wait, I gotta chill out a little bit. But I always tell them, like, I'm not going to make them do something that's completely ridiculous. If it's something I can't do, I ain't going to tell them to do it. So, I just try to push them, but strength and conditioning, like for me, I like to redline myself. If I got to make myself barf, I'm doing it. So
no, and you kind of have to,
whatever comes first.
And you kind of have to. And I feel that sometimes once again when you've got like couch coaches and stuff like that, you never really realize how hard it is until you do it. And my first moment was like just simple plank, right? I remember when I first did the Wim to Warrior, for instance, and they're like, all right, now you got to plank for 3 minutes. And like in my mind, it's like 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yeah, like it's like 3 minutes is easy, right? 30 seconds in, I wasn't saying that.
Kind of hard.
Right? I wasn't saying that. And
that's 3 minutes is kind of hard.
They do it at the beginning to try to break you and stuff, like, and you see everyone's form goes out, like everyone starts sticking their butt up in the air. But I mean, they'll come around, they'll be like, push it back down, like, but yeah, it's one of those moments that you kind of like, yeah, you never realize. And as I say, it's the same thing. It's anything you do, it's like, throw straights for a minute, right? The first 10 seconds, fine. 20, fine. 30. And then it's like that last 20 seconds, from 40 to a minute, you're starting to go, okay, I'm feeling my shoulders, I'm starting to really drop my hands.
Yes.
And it's kind of crazy. But so with this fight, do you know much about your opponent?
I know that he is, I'm pretty sure he's a brown belt. He's a grappler. Well, you know what? I don't know exactly what he's very good at, because from what I'm not one to really study my opponent anyway. But from what I know, I think he's a brown belt. He's got a little bit of wrestling background, and he does like to strike a little bit from what I've seen. But what I mean from like not even studying my opponents, it's Floyd Mayweather said it once. He's like, I don't study any opponent. I just go in there and do what I do best. And I kind of just I really try to implement that, because sometimes you can be so ready for one specific thing and you get in there and you're like, what the heck is this nonsense? You know what I mean? It's something completely different from what you train for.
100% I agree with that, because sometimes you get so caught up as well that you forget to let go. Right? Like I've seen it so many times where people, like, they're good, but they're so worried about what their opponent's going to do that suddenly they forget what they're good at. Not that they forget what they're good at, but they're bracing so much for their opponent to do whatever they're doing that it's like, hey, dude, now you're just on the defensive, right? And I think
they don't pull the trigger.
I think even Conor had that with his last fight, right, where he ended up with the Khabib fight, where he ended up blaming his camp a little bit because he said we took too much of a defensive kind of, because they were so worried about Khabib's wrestling, that same thing, like he didn't really implement his attack, right? And I mean, I don't know if it would have changed the outcome. I really don't, because I mean, Khabib's just a different animal. But like it's just an interesting thought that by being so concerned about your opponent, it actually affects, as I say, and I hear that more often where people are just like, I can do stuff too. I'm not worried about what he's doing.
Yeah.
I can do stuff.
People really forget that once we, like, if you're playing your game, they get thrown off their game regardless. So there's no point in playing defense. Like, even if your game is defense and they're a really good offensive person, then at some point your game still starts end up becoming the thing that leads you start leading the dance anyway, you know? So like I'm not the best wrestler, I'm not the best grappler, I'm really not the best anything, but what I do very well once I get going, I know it's hard to stop me. Like a lot of my training partners even tell me hey, once you get going, you're a problem. And I just keep that in my head, and I always just tell myself, hey, you gotta lead the dance. Go out there, lead the dance every time.
Well, and there's one thing that, all skill levels people can train at and get, but there's one thing that you can't teach or whatever, and that's heart, right? And I think that's probably more on that is like, and I had this talk to Richie last podcast in regards to like even the restless mentality compared to a lot of, and it's just that constant grind where they just don't look for a way out and they just keep going, even if they're losing, even if things are going bad, they just keep going. And sometimes you can't teach that quality, Yep.
But
I guess now with Bellator, another thing I wanted to ask is, obviously you're sitting in quarantine right now. What kind of protocols do they have? I mean, we saw when UFC went off to Fight Island, which I guess everyone wanted to do because it looked like a pretty good holiday. But they made, and I guess they had to as well, just to show people that it's safe and stuff. But they made this big whole thing where there was being videos released, and I kind of felt like the COVID test was becoming the new flex, because everyone that was getting tested was, posting it on the gram, getting something stuck up their nose, which is kind of weird, right? Like that's the new flex. But right? Well, 6 months ago it was having rolls of toilet paper. That was the flex, right?
It's all foreign to us, basically.
But yeah, so what kind of things have Bellator got in place in regards to making sure you guys are safe and so forth?
I think Bellator is doing an awesome job. They're not being real sticklers about it, but like they're letting us enjoy the whole process of it all at the same time, but still taking the necessary precautions. Just to keep it safe. Like you don't need to blow it out of proportion and be like, hey, you need to do this, do that. Like they've been pretty cool. Like we got in, we got to walk around a little bit. They got hand sanitizers and all the masks posted up everywhere for us to use, and they had us take our COVID tests, right the day before we flew out, and we just did our COVID test again this morning. And then right as soon as we were done with that, they sent us right back to our room. Like even when we checked into the hotel, everyone had their mask on and just was like, all right, this is where you got to go. We'll show you way to your room. And they've been pretty laid back about it. Like it's not terrible. We're like, this is no fun, like I'm still enjoying fight week because I'm still hanging out with my friends and not feel like someone's sitting right outside of my door making sure I don't peek out the door and see if I can sneak away for whatever reason, But yeah, they're doing a great job. I don't think I'm also one of those people that's I'm not really tripping on COVID too much. I think that if we're healthy and doing what we need to do to stay safe, then that's really all we can do. You might as well just, it's life. You got to go on. Tomorrow's a new day. We got to keep doing it. We got to do it all over again.
Well, exactly. And it's kind of like, when we were talking before about freedoms, right? Like the same conversation was had with a friend where I was like, it's kind of weird that we're doing all these lockdown things in order to save lives, right? That's the main objective. But then if my whole life is just about sitting at home because I can't go outside and live life, what life am I actually saving too, right? Like it's a kind of a weird concept, because sometimes, when you go into these total lockdowns, I'm like, well, I'm in prison now. Like I'm literally in prison. Like,
Yeah.
and is this the life I want to live, right? But
Mm-hmm.
talking about masks though, the thing I never understand is, like, I understand wearing the masks obviously all the way through, I guess, fight week while you guys are getting your tests, and then, usually they wear them to weigh-ins and stuff like that. But once it gets to fight night, why are corners still wearing masks? Because, like, everyone's been tested. Like, everyone's been, right? Because the corners get tested too, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, if the two fighters are in the cage and they're not wearing a mask, the ref's not wearing a mask, why are the corners still wearing masks?
You know, I don't know. That's what I mean about COVID. It's like you everyone's got such a weird perspective of it all. Everyone, like, there's no way to really even go about it. Like, no one understands it yet. It's so new to us, and like, really, one or two people wearing a mask isn't gonna make any difference if it's spread through, bodily fluid contact. Like, if I spit on somebody's arm, it doesn't matter if it gets in their mouth or their face. It doesn't, like, they're gonna get it anyway if one person's not using it. You know what I mean?
But my whole
So
point, my whole point with it is, like, I understand if you go to the shopping center, right, to buy groceries, fair play, wear the mask. But I'm saying, like, I mean, I guess,
everyone in the arena, yeah.
yeah, right. I'm saying, or are you guys fighting in an empty arena as well, or you got crowd?
Yeah. We got a little bubble. I guess the little
So that's
arena.
so that's my point. So if there was like a live audience there, then once again, I would go wear the masks, totally justified. But when the only people in that room are people from the bubble that have all been tested, I just don't get it. I find it so
Why
funny.
is only
And especially when you see the corners trying to talk to their fighters in between rounds and they keep slipping down and they keep popping up. I'm like, that shit must just get
or
annoying.
they're trying to yell at their fighter pulling it off so they can hear them. I don't get it. I'm still trying to wrap my head around all these bonehead things that's going on still.
And then I guess the question is, does it become the new, as people call it, the new normal?
The new normal.
Another question, obviously, and this is an extreme couture question. A lot of the times when one of your guys go to war, the hashtag or whatever it is, burn the boats. Where did that come from? And what does it actually represent? Because, like, I always see it, like, burn the boats. And I'm like sitting over here going, whose boats are we burning? So can you just explain that to me?
So I'm pretty sure Eric was the one who came up with it. Like, he's got Viking blood in him. So like, he's a believer in that whole, like, back in the day, like, the ancient Vikings used to, they would take their boats over to foreign lands, raid, and then they would burn everyone's boats. Like, they'd even burn their own boats. So, like, there was no return. It was, you go to war, the winner gets to take all, and like, there was no casualties left. And like, I guess he's kind of brought that into the sense for into the gym, to where, like, we're always flying out to our fights, right? Um, but just even if it's a home turf kind of fight, like, just the mentality of being like, we're going on foreign soil and we're gonna go over there and take over, and just, like, it's gonna be our show. We're taking over and we're burning boats, and we ain't, like, only way we coming back is, with the win, and it's the same saying as we used to say. We would always tell each other, it was like, come back on your shield or come back with it. It's the same thing, burn the boats. This old school, just Neanderthal kind of style warfare. Just, hey, you got to go over there, wreak havoc, and come back. And that's the only way to look at it.
I wasn't going to bring this up, but I will now because you just talked about coming back on your shield. Do you think, and I don't know if you've listened to some, because I've had this conversation on past episodes, do you think that cornermen, in some cases, I'm not talking about all cases, but in some cases, need to throw in the towel a lot sooner than what they do?
You know, I've had this talk with Eric because there is guys that are too tough for their own good. I'm pretty sure I'm one of them. Like, there will be a point, maybe at some point in my career, where I'm getting beat, and I won't give up. I won't quit. Like, but there has to be an understanding between the fighter and their cornerman that, hey, if you feel that towel needs to be tossed in there, like, I respect that. That's him looking out for my life. At the end of the day, it's the same as any job, or any job that that can risk our life. There's no job is worth our life. And at the end of the day, we want to go home to our family and friends, whatever it is. And if Eric was to throw the towel in there for me because he felt like he needed to, I won't I won't even think twice about why or be mad at him.
And I totally respect. I totally respect that, right? Because and this has been my point all along, is like, I'd rather see you fight another day, right? And it's because it's not like we're playing tennis where you lose a game, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have, or at the end of the day, if you take the wrong kind of beating, like that can change your life. Like, it's literally life changing, right? So. And it's just weird. Like, I even had one of our most respected refs on a couple of weeks ago, and he said in his 15 years, and this is in pro, amateur, whatever, in his 15 years, he's only ever had one towel thrown in 15 years. And I'm like, that's just crazy, And like, I get it. You always want to give your fighter the best chance to potentially come back and take the win, and I get that. But then there's sometimes where I see fights and I'm like, there's no way. And right now he's just taking unnecessary damage, right? Like badly. And case in point that I keep bringing up is the Anthony Smith the fight before that, right? Where he was picking up teeth from the ground and handing it. And then afterwards he came and he said, my coaches know that if they throw in the towel, they're no longer my coaches. And I'm like, what kind of attitude is that to have? Like, I get it, but it's kind of like, dude,
it's looking out for you, man.
Right. And
the thing is with cornermen too, they get to see it from the outside in a different angle, in a different light. We're in there in the heat of the moment, adrenaline's pumping, and obviously we fight because we enjoy this, So like, in some kind of twisted way, our heads is thinking, oh, like, I'm fine, we're good, But it's one of those things where I think a cornerman or your cornerman can see how bad it really is, because we don't see it. Like, you could be getting cracks the whole fight and not really realize it, because your adrenaline's pumping. You don't really feel half the punches that's gonna be thrown at you. By, like, if you're getting a beating, you're probably numb, and just getting tossed around. And that's what I mean. Or I think more fighters need to have that talk with their coaches and just be fully, like, black and white. Hey, if you're gonna throw that towel in, like, I respect it, I understand it, and I see your point of view. I'm not gonna be mad about it. I'm not gonna turn around and be pissed off at Eric for pulling me out of a fight after my 3 teeth just got knocked out. Like, I'm probably taking a beating. You should probably throw that thing in. Like, and
it was crazy.
I'd rather get paid half my purse than go home with a broken skull.
Well, and that's the thing. Get paid half your. I think that's the problem too. Is just the pay structure that it is. Because you got a lot of money riding on it. I get that too. You kind of like, but once again, if your fighter's in a position where you just know you're like, he ain't coming back from this, he ain't going to get that win bonus anyway, right? Like, I'm talking about, as I said, I'm not talking about like you've had a bad round. I'm talking about you've had a bad 3 rounds. Like, it's you know what I mean? Like this. So once again, I'm
Yeah.
not expecting like a towel to be thrown every single card or even every year. But when you're talking about in 15 years, one towel's been thrown, I kind of go, that's crazy, right? Like that.
Yeah,
That to
that is
me,
pretty crazy.
that
Imagine how many fights he's worked, you know?
well, he told me. I
That
think it was
that is pretty crazy.
from memory. He was like, I think it was 541 or 542 fights. Like he literally counts
And
every single fight,
one
right?
towel.
And one towel's been thrown in.
I've seen maybe two or three fights in the last year that probably could have been like, you can probably throw the towel and like
And
or
and the
even
weird,
I mean even referees make the mistake too, like sometimes they stop it too late or stop it too early. But if there is somewhere you can argue like, hey, that was pretty early. But if a referee stops a fight, like if it's for me personally, if a referee stops a fight and I'm clearly taking a beating, I'm not gonna get up and be like, bro, what are you doing? Like I'll be like, hey, thanks
but
for looking out.
but
It
the
is what
funny
it is.
the funny thing on that point is, a lot of the time it's not even the fighter that has the problem. It's the cornerman. They'll come and they'll be like, you stopped that too early and you stopped this, like so. But on that token, the difference I see there as well is whether it's let's say an official of any capacity, right? Judge or ref, you're always going to get backlash. You stopped it too early. You stopped it too late. If it
Yeah.
goes to the judges, robbery, this and that. Like, I don't think that a corner looking after their fighter's best health would get that same kind of criticism. Like, I once again, it doesn't happen that often, but like, say someone threw in a towel, I don't think the fans would go, what'd you throw in the towel for? Because you give that kind of respect to those coaches as well, that they know what they're doing.
Uh-huh.
Not that I'm saying that officials don't know what they're doing, but you get what I'm saying. Like the casual fan, especially, and it happens in all sports, like even in football and stuff,
Yeah.
like people, oh, where's your glasses, ref? Like they're always going to cop it, where I feel that, if it came from the coach, they wouldn't really cop that kind of a verbal beating, and especially in today's world where everyone's on social media and you get all these keyboard warriors and but yeah, I just don't. Yeah, as I said, I find it interesting, and I always relate back to as well, like the boxing thing, that to bounce back from an L in MMA is a lot easier than to bounce back from an L in boxing. Yet I see more boxing coaches throw in the towel than I do MMA coaches, right? And
Yeah.
that's the weird
yeah.
thing, because I'm kind of like, you could drop, like you have a good performance this weekend, right? People aren't even going to see your last fight, right? Like that's how quickly you can
Yeah.
bounce back from a loss, where in boxing, it takes a while to get back up.
Oh, but he
right?
lost to so and so or
Right.
whatever it is. Yeah.
So and that's why I kind of feel, as I say, that's a real weird mentality, and I get it as well. If you put it down to your coach, I think you should be picking the right people for your corner, right? To the point where you don't
Yeah.
have to threaten them and say, listen, if you call the fight, you're no longer my corner. You're the one who chose to have those people in your corner, and you're choosing them because you think they have the best interest at heart, right? So like, I think it's kind of weird that you have to go down that route. But my end point to that as well is, even if I was threatened to be out of the job, right? At the end of the day, sometimes you got to go, I got to do what's right for, my duty of care. Like at the end of the day, yes,
Uh-huh.
I might not be back in his corner, or maybe after, a couple of months, he'll realize that I made the right call. But at the end of the day, as
Yeah.
a human being, you've got to have that duty of care is where I stand with it. But as you said, like
Yeah.
it's about having the right relationship with your coach, I guess.
You know what I think also plays a role is coaches do get paid, based off whatever the fighter makes, 10%, 15% of half their purse or their full purse. And I think sometimes coaches do. I'm not saying they do, but I think it does cloud the judgment that like they get stuck on, oh, maybe he'll get the 50K in the win, and I'll get this much X amount money more than I would if he lost, and I know some coaches that don't take from their fighters' purses for certain reasons, like even reasons like, if I don't want you to fight and because I think it's not a good fight for you, like you're not gonna fight, and I respect that kind of decision by a coach if they say, I think this fight could be bad for you, not because I don't believe in you, just because they're looking out for you, you know what I mean? And yeah, I think that's one of those things that could cloud your judgment in a fight or for a cornerman, because they'll be like, oh no, he can come back, and he's clearly getting beat up, but in the back of their head it's like, oh, I might get paid this much more if you get the win. So
I agree with that. So once again, if you say come out and you win the first round, or it's competitive, and the second round is bad for you, I would then go, okay, we'll give him the third round. 100%, I would do that, right? Like to see, okay, he's won one, or potentially won one, or it was close, he's dropped one, let's see what. But the case of Anthony, it was like he won the first, and then the next 3 rounds were 10-8s. Like, I say, like, once again, if it's a close fight, dropping a round, I'm not talking about dropping rounds. I'm talking about when you're getting beat. As in, like, I don't even know how the thought theory would be like, oh, if he wins, I might make an extra amount of money. Like, I'm saying fights where you say there is no coming out of this anymore. Like, literally there was, you know what I mean? And you couldn't even say, but he might get that lucky shot in and knock Teixeira out, because the rest of the fight was just Teixeira on the top, on the ground, just belting into him. Apologizing, and then Anthony going, it's all right, it's part of the job. Like, I mean, that's the funny thing too. At the moment, we get all the audio, right? Like, because there's no audio, there's no audience.
Another dude, too tough for his own good,
right? And it's just like, it's those fights where I'm like, look, you're not going to get the win bonus. Like, you just not, like, it's not going in that direction at all. And so once again, I'm not trying to make this whole point like, we should be throwing in the towel all the time. Like, it's literally. There's just certain fights where you look at it and you're like, this is crazy. Like, what are they even doing? But
bottom line is they just got to have an understanding, coach and fighter together, and trust each other's judgment. That's all.
Sweet. So we will start to wrap up soon. Before I do, I just want to say the visualization, this fight. Because it's two fights in a row, right? Like there's 2 cards. So there's a Friday and a Saturday, and you're fighting on the Saturday?
I'm on Saturday, yes.
So how do you see this fight going down? Like, obviously, do you see it going the distance? Do you, like, how you feeling?
It's funny that you asked that. Eric actually called every single one of my wins. He's called all 4 of them by each strike accurate. And in the first round, first fight, same thing. He said right hand, first round, it happened. Second round, second fight was the body kick. He called it. He said left body kick, finished the fight, first round. Same thing, third and fourth one. Fourth fight, I was like, I'm not leaving this first round. I was in my head, I was like, nah, we're not leaving this first round. I need to get this done. Like, I don't want to be in there longer. Because that dude that I fought was dangerous in my first fight. And I was like, no, we're not leaving the first round. And so going into this fight, I don't want to. It's just different. Eric and Ray believe it's not going to leave the first. I'm coming off a loss. I'll take a win however it's painted. Like, I'll paint the picture as long as I win. And but if I'm being completely honest, I don't see this going past 2.
Past 2.
I want it done in the first 2.
Nice. And yeah, you definitely don't want to see it out to the judge's decision.
Yeah. I want to get a knockout. I really want it. I'm hungry for it. Just that's how I think it's going to go down. We'll see though.
Nice. All right. Well, before I let you go though, we'll just go through a couple of fights that are coming up as well. I like to always get a few little predictions. The first,
all right.
the first one, I believe, is an ex-teammate of yours now. because I think he's moved or he's in the process of moving, which is Uriah versus Anderson Silva. How do you see that fight going down?
You know, that's a really good fight. For Uriah, especially. This was the fight that should have happened a while back. I actually helped Uriah for that whole camp leading up to that fight until Anderson pulled out. Yeah, Anderson pulled out, and Southpaw, kind of, we don't have the same style, but like we both play that very long game very well. And Uriah, I think man, the dude's a monster. He's coming off 2 finishes, and like with him, it's just you don't know what you're gonna get. I think if Anderson goes in there and tries to be patient and find his shots, I don't see him beating Uriah. Uriah is one of those guys you got to get in his face and really you got to bring the fight to him. And if you let Uriah get going, he's probably one of the scariest guys I've ever sparred with. And even when he's nice to me, like, so I see Uriah possibly maybe not even getting a finish, but I see it being unanimous his way.
I definitely see it as an entertaining fight, like, because they're both elite strikers, right? Like, it's kind of when Izzy fought Anderson down in Melbourne. I thought that was kind of cool, right? The only thing that I guess worries me with Uriah is that, and no fault of his own, he's had a bit of a layoff, right? Because all these fights kept dropping out on him, and it's always one of those things like, is the layoff good? Obviously, it allows your body to recover, but you want to keep your tools sharp as well. And I think that's the only thing that kind of concerns me a little bit. But apart from that, I just think it's going to be an awesome fight. Next one on the list is I think they've announced it or they're talking about it is Dustin versus Ferguson.
Oh yeah, I think they did announce it. You know what? That fight is. You see, Dustin is like Gaethje, like just scrappy, get in your face. Another one of those guys that's too tough for their own good. And I think if Dustin can actually do what Gaethje did to Ferguson, we'll probably see the same result. Maybe not as bad, but we'll see the same result. On the other hand, I think Ferguson is one of those guys too. It's just, man, he's a boogeyman. Like we'll see. We'll see what happens. I like Dustin in that fight. I'm also a very big Dustin fan as well. But I think he's got the tools to get it done as well.
Nice. Now we go to the Aussie, which is Whittaker versus Cannonier. How do you see that? Do you think Whittaker's turned a page and he's back on the come up, or do you like Cannonier in this one?
I like Whittaker, man. He's grown over me. Grown on me over the years. He's been active, so like, and Cannonier is like, you see him sometimes. He's also just flying under the radar, like. And I think Whittaker he's still at the top of his game right now. Like, yeah, he lost the title, but I don't think he's really missed a step. He's still really good, really hungry. He said he's fresher now. His body feels better. His mind is in a much better place than it was before. And he had a tough last fight against Till. But those were 2 ticking time bombs. Like that's a fight that you kind of you're gonna sit back a little bit and be like, all right, who's gonna make the first move, And that's what we saw. Styles make fights, and I think Whittaker has the tools in his box to pull that one out. I see going to a decision for that fight, but I think Whittaker gets it done in a close fight. Maybe split. We'll see.
Next is Ortega versus Korean Zombie. And do you think that is the contender fight? Do you think the winner will get Alex?
Yeah, I think the winner does get Alex, because I know they were talking about Max getting another shot, but there's gonna be a lot of angry people about Max getting that shot before anybody else. You know what I mean? And I think he's got something he's fighting someone else too. But
And I also think Alex has kind of stated it makes no sense for him, and he's been very big about like, because every time they ask him like, well, who are you going to fight next? He's like, well, the number one contender. And I kind of feel like this Korean Zombie versus Ortega is kind of that fight. So I think
yeah,
I definitely think the winner will get Alex. But but how do you see that fight going down? And who do you give that one to?
I think Korean Zombie takes it. A lot of people are probably gonna say no to that, but I think Korean Zombie is one of those guys where he he's tough as nails, man. Too. He's just grimy, gets in your face, takes a lot of damage, gives a lot of damage, and we seen that when Brian fought Max, and Korean Zombie can get in Brian's face the same way that Max did to Brian. So I think we'll probably see it, or probably not as bad as that fight was, but we'll see something along those lines where Korean Zombie's getting in his face, tagging him up. It'll be a good scrap. I think that one goes to the decision. No one gets finished, but it'll be real close, back and forth scrap. See a lot of blood in that fight for sure.
All right, and there's rumors now of a BMF title number 2, but once again, it's Maz Vidal versus Diaz. How do you see that fight going down? Do you think it'll go down much like the first, or do you even think that the first got stopped a little early, or like, yeah, how do you see this fight?
You know what? I gotta watch that fight again. It's been a while, so I don't really remember that fight, but I do think that Maz Vidal has grown so much. And man, the dude literally jumped in how much better he is from where he was maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and now the dude's making really big jumps as far as progressing as a fighter. Like, nobody expected him to defend as many takedowns as he did against Kamaru, or let alone do as well as he did against Kamaru. You know, I mean, that was a boring fight, but like he showed really how talented he is and how much he has grown as a fighter. Yeah, he's tough, man, and I've got to train with him, and I've got to speak to him a little bit a while. This was a couple years ago, and like the way his head is really wired, the dude's down to scrap too. He's willing. He's one of those guys on my shield, or I'm coming back with it, and I think Masvidal, and I think Diaz is they're just trying to reclaim old glory, and I think Masvidal is he's the man there right now. He's gonna beat Diaz. I think his boxing is probably much cleaner than Diaz's. I think Masvidal will finish him. I don't know when, but at some point in that fight, probably late. We'll see though.
All right, now we go back to the Aussie.
That's interesting.
Now we go back to the Aussie and Bellator. Arlene Angerfist is going to be facing off against Cyborg. How do you see that one go down?
Ooh. I don't know. That's actually, like Cyborg, we've seen two sides of her over the last 2 years, I'd say. Like, we were like, she doesn't want to fight anymore. She doesn't like getting hit. And we've seen her come out and just demoralize, what was her name, in that last fight. And it's like, oh man, like which Cyborg are we going to get? But, I don't know. That's a really tough one. I think Cyborg might edge it out, but who knows? Like, if Arlene gets going early, I think she could maybe slightly edge it out, But Cyborg's an animal. Like, she's one of the scariest women to grace the octagon, or any cage for that matter, and that'll be fun to see. I don't know. I couldn't even pick one, to be honest.
I always say, yeah, she is one of the scariest, but I also say, they're scary when they're unbeaten, right? It's like, as I say, like now, like Khabib's on that wavelength, right? It's like he's unbeatable until he gets beaten, and then we saw what happened to Ronda Rousey, right? Like, she was this unstoppable
Yeah.
woman. Then she got beat. She took a year off, got beat again. Like, so I think everyone has their time. And look, Cyborg's also aging as well, so I don't know. But then again, Arlene's not the youngest spring chicken anymore either. So look, it's gonna be a fun fight. Izzy versus Costa.
Izzy versus Costa. You know what? I really don't care who wins that fight. I just really want to see both of them get slapped in the mouth. Like, I'm not a big fan of both guys, but but I'll give credit where it's due. They're both monsters as well. Like, Izzy's not a joke, you know. Paulo, well, he's a specimen. He's a freak of nature, and the dude can take a shot, and we've seen that as well. You know, Whitaker showed a couple kinks in Izzy's armor, and we'll see if Paulo can capitalize and, you know, do something with that. But you know, I think if it goes a distance, or if it goes past 2 rounds, I think Izzy finishes it at some point. If not, I don't know. We'll see if Costa can come out guns blazing and put it on him. Maybe he might catch him, but I think Izzy finishes him late in that fight at some point.
See, everyone's talking about like Costa being like yo, except he's going to force the fight. But I also feel like that can play into Izzy's hands because I think he's a very technical striker and a counter striker
awesome
at that.
Counter puncher.
Right. So I kind of go, yes, Costa
puncher.
will bring that fight, but two, that could actually go against him in that sense. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Now
he throws so many bombs and leaves himself open at times, which left him open to get tagged a couple of times in that. What was that? The UL fight, and like there you go. You know, same thing. It's Izzy can spot that. Same as what Whitaker did. Whitaker left himself open for a split second, trying to throw too many bombs, and Izzy capitalized. So I think Izzy will probably end up doing exactly that.
next was it was going to be the fight that everyone wanted, which was Tony versus Khabib, right? But that was the most cursed fight in the world. And 6 times over or whatever it was, it wasn't going to happen. I don't think we'll ever get to see that fight. So now it's Justin versus Khabib. How do you see that one?
That'll be actually a good fight. I think Khabib, knowing that he's such a dominant, superior wrestler to everyone he's ever graced the cage with, I think he will stand and bang with them just a little bit, just to make him think he's gonna do that. And I think Khabib tries to wrestle him just to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm the man. Like, I'm still the better wrestler." Because, you know, Gaethje can wrestle, you know. And I think he's gonna try and prove a point and be like, "Okay, I can stand and bang with you, and I can probably out wrestle you." And if he does do that, oh man, it's gonna be a long night for Gaethje. But if he doesn't get going on Gaethje first, which Gaethje's really good at getting stronger and better throughout the rounds, I can see it being a close fight as well. I don't think anyone gets finished, to be honest. I think it probably ends up going to a decision.
Are you tilting one way or the other?
I was actually just thinking about that. I think Khabib probably gets the finish. Not gets the finish, gets the decision.
Fair play.
We're a very close fight. I don't know. That's
see,
great.
I'm
like
kind of
like real close.
Yeah. See, I might be hopeful or something. I don't know. And it's not that I don't like Khabib either. Like, you know, as I said, he's brilliant at what he does. But I think, you know, as you've mentioned, like Justin's a good striker. He's a good wrestler, which could nullify some of that. And the thing is, what we saw in the last Tony fight is that he's more calculated now, where he wasn't before, but he's very calculated now. And as I said, it could be hopeful just because I like the underdog story or whatever. But I think there could be an upset there. Maybe.
It could.
Right? It is razor close.
I'm a Gaethje fan, so like I'm actually hoping that Gaethje wins that fight. But like I said, I'm 50-50 right now. Like, I'm really don't know who's gonna take it. Like that's one of those. If someone asked me, "Hey, should I put money on this fight?" I'd be like, "Nope, don't ask me because I ain't gonna give you no answer. I got nine for you."
All right, so now we'll go to another Aussie. We got Megan Anderson versus Amanda Nunes. How do you?
Uh, you know, I I'm a fan of both fighters. Um, I'm also one of those people that I just get bored when it's the same champion for so long. And Amanda's did amazing things for the sport. It's one of those things where it's like if I had to compare Amanda to somebody, it'd be like GSP. Just retire on top. Like just ride into the sunset and let it be. And so part of me is like in my head, I'm like, come on, Megan, like I want Megan to win this fight. Amanda has been, man, she's a gangster, bro. She really makes very calculated high IQ decisions in fights. She knows where to keep the fight. She knows how to keep the fight in her hands. She leads the dance in all her fights, and um, I also think Megan is still kind of learning how to be at the top of the sport. I don't think she's quite ready for Amanda yet, but I think if Amanda comes out and kind of takes it a little lightly, Megan could pull something probably off. Like who knows? It'd be something crazy. But I think Amanda wins just because she's she's still so much better than a lot of the people in that division. She's a lot better. She's like GSP of his time, just so much better than everybody else. So I think Amanda wins.
Yeah, I would have to agree, and on that, like I've made a bit of money on Amanda because until obviously
Yeah, me too.
she can't. Man, they kept her as an underdog for so many fights when she was coming up. I couldn't believe it. Like every time she was like
Oh,
underdog, 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 and I'm like,
yeah.
she right.
Bet,
I was like,
bet.
I couldn't believe it. Like, and I'm not even talking about close underdogs. Like over here, some of them were like paying $3 or something. Like which is I don't know how you plus 200 plus 300. I don't know how it all works, but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it was
yeah.
a major underdog,
Same
and I was
thing.
like, this is crazy. All right, I've got two more for you. So we got Usman versus Burns.
Oh, I like Gilbert. I like Gilbert Burns, man. Dude's riding his wave right now. The dude's literally riding his wave. He just scary. He's so hungry, and um I think Maz Vidal also showed uh everyone what Usman has. Like if you can weather his storm a little bit and really put the pressure on him a little bit, which I think Gilbert can do, especially since they were teammates. Like they know each other well enough to like, I know what's his weaknesses, but they know each other's weaknesses. But I think Gilbert being so much hungrier and man, she's riding his wave, and that alone could probably even be the difference in the fight. His confidence is through the roof. So I think Gilbert will get it done in five. I don't it won't be a finish, but I think they'll get it done in five just because they know each other so well.
See, and I was gonna say like the one thing I like about Gilbert is the hunger. You can see he's hungry. He
Yep.
is that lion wanting to be released, right? Like he's just chomping at the bit.
Yep. I mean that's you know what they say, scary man is an ambitious man. So yeah, that's what it is right there.
All right, so the last one is kind of a two-part question. Stipe, obviously, firstly, Francis was told he'd have that next crack at him.
Uh-huh.
Now Jon Jones is out there trying to make a case for it as well, saying we've seen that fight, and also you want the biggest super fight ever, get Jon Jones versus Stipe. So the two parts to this question is. How do you see that? Who do you think should fight Stipe next? And then also, how do you see that fight going either way, whether it be John or whether it be Francis?
Um, you know what? It's messed up that Jon Jones gets to do whatever the hell he wants in the UFC, and that it bugs me sometimes because it's not just him. Like there is some people in the UFC that just gets to kind of do whatever they want, but
Connor.
especially Jon Jones. I mean, yeah, he's earned a lot of it, but he's also did a lot to not deserve it, you know. And um, I think if Stipe was to fight Francis, which should be the first fight to happen, uh that's tough. Francis is my teammate, so it's like, uh, I could see Francis winning. His grappling has gotten so much better. He grapples, a lot, and especially with Roy Nelson, Tim Johnson in the gym. Those guys can wrestle and grapple, and he gets a lot of work with those guys. It won't be like the first fight. I think Francis will make it a much closer fight, and Stipe is starting to show that he's losing a little bit of his step. You know what I mean? Like the way DC was able to touch him up and whatnot, and Francis being a little more technical going into this next fight. If they do fight, I think Francis could actually finish him in that at some point in that fight. I don't see Stipe trying to grapple him and beat him up like he did last time right
And
away.
I think that's where that one sits, right? It's literally how much has Francis improved in the wrestling, and not even as in like to wrestle, has he got enough defense, right? And the only
Yeah,
reason being is that's how Stipe kind of grinded it out. Now, when you look at the power that's
yeah,
behind Francis, I mean, look, DC was able to knock
scary.
out Stipe on the first encounter, right? And Francis hits a lot harder than that. So it's a matter of,
Yeah,
can he keep it standing and can he tag him, or does Stipe manage to get him down and just grind it out? I mean, that's basically how I see that fight. Has
yeah. I
Francis
I
got
think
enough
Francis.
defense to keep that fight up?
Yeah, I think. Well, even then, if it gets to the ground, I think Francis has enough knowledge of the ground now to where if he gets on top, he like that's not a guy you want on top of you. You know what I mean? Um, like I sparred with him numerous times, and he don't even strike with me. He'll grapple me, and he's so like, I'm not a good great grappler either, but like I've grappled him when he first came to Extreme, where I was like, oh, yeah, let's grapple. Like I have no problem grappling him, but now it's like, no, I don't want to grapple with you, bro. Now now you officially know what you're doing. You're strong, and you're two weight classes bigger than I am. So I don't even want to play in your ballpark. But um, yeah, I think Francis can definitely get it done this time if that fight happens. Um, Jon Jones, on the other hand, Jon Jones. This is Jon Jones. The dude, his striking, his fight IQ is through the roof as well. You can see him make changes in a fight between rounds so well, and implement them right as the next round comes right away, no problem. So I think if Jon Jones can put on the muscle and really actually build that heavyweight frame, he'll be even a monster there. He'll be like Gustafsson, you know what I mean? If there was a heavyweight and just big monsters. So I think Jon Jones can even probably finish the Stipe in, you know 4 rounds.
So either way, you're saying Stipe's days are numbered as the champ. Either way, he's losing that belt,
Yeah,
whether it be to Francis or to
yeah.
Jones,
I also think the UFC is even trying to find a way to get Stipe to not be the champion. You know what I mean? Like
because he's not marketable. Or
it's not that it's unmarketable. I think his road as being a champion is just slowly going elsewhere. You know what I mean? I think the UFC has plans to bring the heavyweight division elsewhere rather than just with Stipe. Like that's why they haven't put him or built Stipe into mega fights or whatever it is. Like they're just letting Stipe kind of just, oh, here, we'll give you this fight when we feel like it. Like the dude doesn't get paid as nearly as much as he should be getting paid. You know what I mean? So I don't see the UFC trying to keep him as a champion. I think they'll finally find somebody that'll dethrone him and make him think about retirement.
Nice. Well, that's it for me. Like that literally is. We've gone a little over. I knew we would, but I mean, it's been a while in the making, right? So like I do really appreciate the time, especially during fight week. But you know, how else are you going to spend quarantine, right? This is a pretty good way.
Yeah, might as well.
So yeah, I always give people the opportunity anyway. You know, if anyone ever wants to reach out to you, whether it's just, you know, because they're a fan of what you do, whether they want to come train with you as a fighter, and also I guess as your PT sessions, if they want to be yelled at you for a little while, what's the kind of best way for people to get in touch with you?
I think Instagram would be the best way to get in contact with me. I got my notifications on for that, so I usually don't miss messages. So you can go on my Instagram at Ty__ Gwerder. Yeah, that would be the best way to reach out to me. So go ahead and shoot me a message, even if it's just a simple conversation. I'm always down to have a conversation.
Well, there you go. You heard it right there. The best way is to just slide into his DMs. I do appreciate your time. As I said, best of luck. Thank you for joining us on Fight Week. Best of luck on the weekend. I think you said second round, so I'll be putting a little wager on that one. Bring those heavy hands, as I see you wearing on your hat. And, yeah, say hello to the rest of the guys for me. And, yeah, I was going to say people should get to the Mohegan Sun, but it's an empty stadium, so make sure you check it out on Bellator. And until next time, we are done.
I'm a one.